The majority of this review was recorded before the last 2 episodes of Fionna Caek came out, but I'll briefly be talking about an event from episode 10 at the end of the video because the finale blew up one of my headcanons. Now without further ado, let's jump into my review of The Star. Back in episode 2 of Fionna Caek, Simon lulled young Marcy to sleep by telling her that without him, she'd probably live with rich folks in a castle with a squirrel army at her call. The cold open to Simon Petrikov's titular episode ends with him being unsure what he would do without Marcy.
As for me, I don't know.
The cold open to episode 7 provided an extremely dark answer to what might have happened to them in such a scenario. Both episodes even feature the exact same street corner to highlight the connection between episode 2's hypotheticals and episode 7's reality. Had Simon never met Marcy, he may have gotten ganked by the vampires and became yet another corpse to litter the landscape. I think Simon may have met his demise because without having to protect Marcy, he was less likely to utilize the crown's ice magic. Simon's death did result in Marcy living in a castle, sort of, a funky castle that looks inspired by nests of colonial animals like termites or wasps. Instead of squirrels, though, she would have an army of vampire minions, and an ice crown-wearing vampire king for a father. I'm not sure which character got the worst outcome here, a premature off-screen death, or a life where you become the worst version of yourself and help plunge the world into ecological disaster.
The population's crashed and you're running out of food, laughing all the way while the world goes down in flames.
The landscape of this world is full of calcified-looking structures, along with red mushrooms, lichens, and other various fungal growths that can be found in practically every corner. The color scheme gives the world a cold and harsh vibe to match the twilight of the perpetually cloudy sky. I had to wonder about the ecology and mycology at play, and the hypothesis that I came up with is the fungi are due to an abundance of vampire poop. Fungi don't photosynthesize and thus don't need the sun as plants would, and vampire feces could serve as like a hypercharged fertilizer for these red mycelia, since bat guano is a potent fertilizer in real life. Seeing all of the red fungi upon the reveal of the title card made me immediately think to the opening to this series, where a baby Finn runs through such a landscape. I correctly guessed that Babyworld Finn hitchhiked in Fiona's backpack the moment the title card dropped, but during the first vampire attack, Fionna got knocked onto her back, which would presumably wake up, if not injure, baby Finn. So at that point, I was unsure where the heck the little tyke was supposed to be. Turns out he somehow slept through getting smushed by the weight of Fionna and a vampire minion. Either this was a minor oversight on the writer's part, and I'm nitpicking, or inhabitants of Babyworld are super soft and immune to crushing injuries. My bet is on the former, but the latter is a pretty funny thought.
How could you bring a child into this world?
It was an accident.
That double entendre joke was so good. Baby Finn was kept out of harm's way for the rest of the episode, though. I guess having the baby version of our main character from the Prime Universe getting moited would be too dark, even for this series. Part of me couldn't stop thinking about how Baby Finn was separated from Baby Jake, though. Having that package deal be split into separate realities by complete accident feels like a big tragedy from the perspective of us, the audience, even if Baby Finn and Baby Jake are too young to comprehend the event. The Babyworld inhabitants might not even have object permanence yet, but it still felt kinda messed up to split up the brothers like that. Now, to switch focus from Finn to Fionna. In the first vampire attack of this episode, Fionna showed that she has started to treat alternate worlds seriously.
Hit my heart!
It's a lot harder in real life.
Up until Fionna butchered a bunch of cursed candies and drained the life from an unethical icy wad, Fionna was spouting consistent video game comparisons.
I've played a lot of post-apocalyptic RPGs.
So seeing this progression in her character where she treats the world as real was nice. I'd say in this episode, Fionna got her very first memento mori moment, or in other words, she got an abject reminder of her own mortality. She received that sobering reality check that she may very well get killed by partaking in these sorts of adventures, though I'd say it doesn't fully sink in until Caek is the one in danger later in the episode.
I almost got 8!
This world is scary.
It really is, though. Seriously, if you want to establish critical danger levels, one way to do it is to have Billy's corpse drained of blood and covered in bite marks. That was a hell of an establishing shot. Unlike Fionna, Caek has been really feeling herself due to the sheer destructive power her ability can pack.
That was awesome.
Now that Caek has a grip on her stretchy powers, she really is a force all on her own, and that's why she's recruited into Bonnie's unit, who is a militant vampire hunting loser in this universe.
Not a loser! Bunch of death wishers.
Immediately upon seeing Bonnie, I declared that her eye must be missing because evil Marceline sucked it out.
I wanna suck out your eyeballs and rip out your throat.
And what a delight it was to have that referenced later in the episode, and even confirmed, depending on how you want to interpret the star's words.
I'm gonna suck out your other eyeball! Choke on it!
My personal headcanon is most def that the star literally sucked Bonnie's eye out after they broke up, but I'll be discussing their relationship later in this video. Right now, I want to talk about the rest of Bonnie's squad. So I don't recall the exact moment I realized Peppermint Butler was literally a tank rather than driving a tank designed after his aesthetic, but it probably took me way longer than it should have. I recall wondering when Peps will finally show himself before feeling really dumb at the realization that we're literally inside him at this very moment. Peppermint Tank is such a great alternate world version of a character. I think he might just be my personal favorite of the entire series.
Cut! Ow, man.
The rest of Bonnie's crew took me by complete surprise. I had expected characters along the lines of alternate reality Rattleballs or Colonel Candy Corn, not Huntress Wizard without the Wizard, and Martin Mertens without a lifetime of burning bridges. Oh boy, was it weird to see Martin look just like his prime rascal version, but behave with so much wholesomeness and care for a purpose greater than himself.
Like I always say, pay it forward.
It felt so odd to hear him say that, with a wink included no less, and actually mean those words. He is such a polar opposite of Season 6 Martin. But unfortunately, that's what contributes to him getting got. Fionna, despite realizing how scary and dangerous vampires are, commits to a rash decision spurred on by saving others, and Martin readily follows suit rather than stopping her.
Come on, Bonnie.
This all spiraled into alternate kind-hearted Martin dying at the hand, or mouth, rather, of the star. Dude got his soul sucked, and his blood sucked. But hey, at least he went out protecting someone. You can really see some of the heroism present in Finn in this universe's Martin, and I was left very curious about the sort of environment he grew up in to cultivate the better aspect of his nature. I was actually surprised Fionna reckoned with Martin's death as well as she did, and was even willing to wear his coat, harking back to the opening theme, but it definitely contributed to the trauma that caused Fionna to flee this universe at the end of the episode. Seeing the carcass of Huntress in such a dramatic way, impaled by her own arrows, certainly further fueled that decision. Huntress in this universe raised questions about the prime counterpart, like whether her green skin, leaf hair, and tree branch antlers are all due to her becoming a wizard and gaining magical powers, rather than her being born that way. It's also unclear to me whether Huntress, and by extension Huntress Wizard, is a human, or among the many miscellaneous humanoid beings that aren't actually humans that exist in the Prime Landezvous and might still exist in this universe. Unlike Martin Mertens, Huntress is very similar to Huntress Wizard in terms of personality. Both are sneaky, straight ahead, often prefer to be silent, to the point of coming off a little broody, and don't tolerate too much nonsense. While there wasn't much going on with Huntress besides her contributions to the team's goals, I really enjoyed the character, and Fionna asking questions about staking vampires in multiple silly ways, only for Huntress to affirm that yes, it would work. That might have been the funniest part of the episode for me.
Like if you planted it in their chest and waited for it to grow into a tree.
Yes.
What about a pine cone?
Don't touch that.
I think Huntress had one of the best off-screen deaths, at least in my recent memory. Somehow not witnessing the moment it happens made the Vampire King appear that much more menacing, which was sorely needed because the ice crown-wearing VK of this universe acts pretty goofy afterward. He tells Marceline,
"Stop toying with your prey and finish her off. Or toy with her in a more creative way. Make it interesting."
And yet, the Vampire King is not at all interested in finishing off nor torturing the foes near him, despite referring to them as
Agents of Light.
Simon had his big moment this episode when he realized his own worth as a parental figure and called out the VK for being a bad dad. But he was lucky to only get a psychokinetic shove rather than get sent flying into the horizon like Team Rocket from Pokemon, but with a fatal landing. Seriously, had the VK taken the insult personally or just been looking to finish the job, Simon would be so dead. Classic Vampire King was a pretty goofy dude too, but the Ice Crown seems to have made him more airheaded and prone to lapses in focus. The crown did not affect his physical appearance, however, so it's hard to tell just how much of an effect there was on the VK's psyche. I was kinda disappointed his mane didn't get super lengthy and white, to be honest. It doesn't even feel right to call him the Ice VK, considering all he seems to use the crown for is to block the sun's rays.
I don't even need this gaudy thing to be powerful, but I like going outside anytime I want.
I think the sheer magnitude of the Vampire King's willpower is why he's able to keep the crown's influence from impacting his psyche too much, as I'm at a loss for any other sensible explanation. If we operate under the assumption that the realities we've seen throughout this series are all the results of wishes, my hypothesis is that the vampire world is a result of the Vampire King's wish for him and Marceline to be friends. This was a desire the VK had during the Stakes miniseries.
Does that mean we can be friends now, Marceline?
The way for them to be friends was for the VK to take Simon's place and raise Marcy under his guidance and tutelage. This universe's Vampire King never pondered about the nature of existence after his kind was wiped out, like in the Prime timeline, so the VK raised Marcy with some monstrous morals, or lack thereof, depending on how one wants to look at it. Although he is a bad dad due to being, evil, the VK did cultivate a father-daughter bond that lasted 1,000 years, which is pretty goddamn impressive. A lot of the bad dads in Adventure Time were largely absentee parents, but unlike them, it seems the VK was always there to cultivate the worst aspects of Marceline's nature.
Daughter.
Yeah, Dad?
It felt so wrong to hear Marceline call the VK her dad, though. It gave me a mild case of the creeps every time she did so, because back in the Stakes miniseries, Marcy had justified unfathomable hatred toward the guy. Exchanging that murderous rage for familial affection had me wincing as if I took physical damage.
Dad wouldn't like that.
Right!
So, considering that I made a video that was over an hour long exploring how tarot was heavily incorporated into the Stakes miniseries, I should probably go ahead and talk about how evil Marceline's name is the Star and what that means. For those unaware, the vampires from the Stakes miniseries were based on tarot cards and, with the exception of the VK, were named after their corresponding major arcana, and the title of the star given to Marcy continues this naming convention. I actually found evil Marceline's direct relation to the Star Arcanum rather tenuous, however. In tarot, some of what the Star card represents include inspiration, optimism/positivity, and hope for the future. It relates to feelings of being blessed by the universe, so to say, and often denotes spiritual fulfillment/guidance and a renewed sense of self. The main way these sorts of characteristics directly tie to evil Marcy is likely in how she views herself. She feels like she is the anointed one in this world, and that she can do anything she damn well pleases, because the world may as well revolve around her as far as she's concerned. It's a pretty weak connection to the Star card though, in my opinion. Rather than the tarot card directly reflecting Marceline, I think the Star as a name was bestowed upon Marceline by the Vampire King, and more so reflects how the VK saw Marcy from his perspective. I'd wager that Marceline acquired the name of the Star upon becoming a vampire, since obviously the VK waited for her to grow up before turning her into one of his kind. The VK loves Marceline as his own daughter and likely saw raising her as his divine purpose, and this task is what bestowed the VK with a positive outlook on the future even when the vampires were draining the world dry. Marceline was the VK's hope and inspiration, and it's cheesy to say, but it appears like he saw her as his shining star. And thus, I think rather than the Star Arcanum representing Marceline herself, it's more so representing what the Vampire King views her as. Those are my thoughts on Evil Marcy's relation to the Star Arcanum, but I would love to read other people's interpretations on the topic, so definitely leave a comment if you have any thoughts that I didn't cover. Now, it's time to chat about the nature of the stars and Bonnie's relationship, especially in regards to what went on with the two in the past. Based on evidence seen in this episode, I am quite convinced the two had a dating phase before Bonnie came to the realization that the stars' ways are just too evil for her, or perhaps too disastrous to the world. Bonnie is aware of the star's original name, something that is apparently quite the hidden secret, enough for those with such knowledge to be considered personal spies of the star. Bonnie making Simon draw blood from the mention of her and Marcy being in love in an alternate universe felt like a she doth protest too much moment.
I would never.
To me, that screamed that she already has. More so, Bonnie shouldn't have hesitation in staking the star unless part of her desires for the star to stay alive.
It'd be so easy to stake you.
And of course, when the star offers for Bonnie to join her side, Bonnie has a second where she gives it some serious thought before uttering her refusal.
What's the point?
And even then, Bonnie's rationale is based on the state of the world more so than her own morals or desires.
Laughing all the way while the world goes down in flames.
From the star's side, it's very clear she wants Bonnie kept alive indefinitely into the future. One can't argue it's only because she sees Bonnie as her plaything, or as someone she wants to see suffer, because as I just mentioned, the star is still willing to recruit Bonnie despite all the trouble Bonnie has caused for the vampires. And then of course, killing your own minion due to an offhand comment also implies to me there's some visceral breakup energy still simmering within Marceline.
Such a nuisance. Why don't you kill her already?
Are you questioning me?
No, of course not!
This all felt exceedingly like a lovers to enemies scenario, or perhaps even an enemies to lovers to enemies again scenario.
Ha! Dum-dum.
While Bonnie and the Star have residual breakup energy coloring their interactions, Gary Prince and Marshall Lee have fresh hookup energy. Vampworld definitely captured most of my attention, I ain't gonna lie, but I still very much enjoyed the slower-paced interludes to Hannah Abadir's Blood Drive. The sheer amount of gender-swapped human versions of characters that appeared was of course super neat. There were so many, I wasn't even able to recognize everyone on my own. Also, I just gotta give props to some of the transitions when we cut from one reality to another. Some of them were really snazzy. In my review of the previous episode, I thought Marshall Lee merely broke going no contact with his mother to ask her for a favor. Nah, it turned out to be so much worse. Marshall traded his dignity and self-respect and was gonna integrate into his mom's corporate empire. Also, this pastry dude he met the other day could get a shot at having his confection business idea funded. Marshall made a deal with his mother that did not even secure the funding, merely enabled for a shot at the funding. And then he didn't even let Gary prep, because he was so confident that Gary's treats would surely win anyone's favor. The most yikes part was that it seemed like Marshall might have legitimately gone through with what his mother wanted, though to be fair, if he had, I bet he would probably end up abandoning the role pretty quickly. I gotta assume there must have been a lifetime of manipulation attempts from Hannah Abadir for Marshall to dig himself into a hole that deep over a guy he just met, no matter how good their chemistry was. Although it is a great thing for Marshall that Gary Prince is a swell upstanding guy who speaks truth to power.
Ms. Abadir, you're a bad mom! You deserve better than anything that creep could do for me.
Having Simon and Gary both call out bad parenting was sweet, but my favorite part of the Gary and Marshall inclusion was definitely the way it was integrated into the ending of the episode. These two characters who are magnetically drawn toward each other, even across worlds, with one reality where the two of them spiral downward into their mutual demise, and one reality where they instead descend into a newfound bliss. That was a really cool juxtaposition and a downright fantastic way to end the episode. My mind went pretty wild musing about how the vampire world would go on once Fionna Caek and Simon moved on to the next reality in the wake of a deceased Bonnie and Marceline. The Vampire King had already witnessed the demise of the rest of his compatriots.
The star has outlived the rest of his inner circle, trained by the VK himself.
Thus, Marceline's death would mean not only the loss of the person most precious to him, but also the loss of his only remaining true friend. In line with many other characters in the Fionna Caek series, Vampire King might just succumb to depression now that his daughter experienced a preventable death that he was too distracted to stop. I figure he could maybe begin to cope in a manner similar to that of the Winter King, attempt to construct a stand-in that exists as a guilty reminder of his misdeeds. Perhaps his grief will resonate with the Ice Crown, and he will succumb more to its influence and start using more icy powers. There's lots of room for brainstorming ideas, and I thought that was really cool. While the human population has allegedly crashed in this world, some humans clearly did survive and remain scuttling through the world as residual vampire prey, so there's always going to be some potential for Castlevania-style vampire hunting to emerge when a hero rises. A hero like Baby Finn, who will be the one to lead the resistance against the VK.
Do you think Baby Finn will be okay?
Excellent form, young man.
Baby Finn being left behind in Vampire World under the protection of the self-fixing, autonomous, and sentient Peppermint Tank was such a cool concept to me. I'm not sure if Baby Finn would actually grow up now that he is outside the baby world, or if he's gonna stay perpetually a baby despite being a crossover, but even if he did not grow up, maybe he could get more coordinated and agile in some kind of cartoonish way that allows him to punch evil vampire buns and be a thorn in the Vampire King's side due to help and tutelage from the all-great Peppermint Tank. So before the last 2 episodes of the show came out, that silly train of thought in regards to Baby Finn brought me a lot of amusement. But then of course episode 10 came and blew that headcanon up completely with a garlic bomb. Because Baby Finn and Peppermint Tank end up as crossovers in Fiona's new universe instead, leaving the desolate Vampire King with no real opposition, but also nothing to really live for. As you can guess, I'm not really a fan of that development. The adventures of Finn the baby and Peppermint the Tank punching vampire buns, that was a way better alternative in my mind. But obviously I'll be talking more about episode 10 when I actually eventually get to reviewing episode 10. Can I just say the first 4/5 of the Fionna Caek series ended up much darker than I anticipated. Before the series released, I thought the plotlines regarding Simon and Golbetti could end up full of morose mourning and messed up repercussions when we reached the finale, but in reverse fashion, the series actually concluded on an overall happy, or at least happy-ish note, and I did not foresee that the various worlds we jump through on the way would themselves be so jam-packed with alternate versions of characters kicking the bucket. That was a thought I had after watching episode 7, but then of course that applies even more so to the next episode, Jerry, which, whoo boy, did that take it to the next level, and I'll talk about that more in my next review. See ya then, whenever that happens to be.